Welcome back to your professional diploma in digital marketing and SEO. We've officially reached the last lesson of the module. So, without further ado, let's quickly go over what we will be covering in today's lesson. As it is the last lesson of the module, I do want to recap a couple of things we have learned throughout the course. But don't worry, we will go over plenty of new things. So, first up, we will get back to our friend Google Analytics and make sure we know how to align what we analyze with our business goals. Then we will be looking at search queries again and look into how we can improve our rankings. We will also get to know how to measure and improve the performance of our content. And then towards the end of the lesson, it will become quite a bit advanced as we will be looking into technical optimization. But hey, this is the last lesson, so you're more than ready for it. First up though, did you know that 93% of online experiences begin with a search engine? 93% of everything we do online starts by opening up a search engine. That really shows us why our SEO is so important. So let's get straight into Google Analytics. We want to make sure that our Google Analytics goals are aligned with our business objectives. First up, does anyone remember what goals are? Just in case, you can set up custom goals on Google Analytics. These let you gather more customized data so that you can align them with your business goals and get the information you actually need to drive your own business. You can create up to 20 goals per view, but usually you won't need as many. So, the first question to ask when creating these custom goals is, what is the purpose of your business? Think back to Module 1 when we talked about our business goals: branding, awareness, sales, and retention. That's what I'm talking about. And then, seeing as we are specifically dealing with SEO, what is the purpose of this website? This could be slightly different depending on how you're using your website, so just be aware of that. Once you have pinpointed exactly what you're trying to achieve, you can then determine what kind of KPIs and metrics you need to focus on and measure to achieve your goals. And that is how custom goals can help us on Google Analytics. Let's take a brief look at them. You should know how to set them up. If not, please refer back to one of your previous lessons. We'll just briefly now look at the different types of goals and how they can help you in achieving your business goals. First up, we have URL destination goals. These help you in keeping track of specific URLs and how many visits you get for individual URLs. The best use probably would be for pages that show up once a user has converted. So a thank you page, a confirmation page, PDFs that have been downloaded, and so on. You can also set up goal funnels, so track the specific steps users follow from one page to the next to optimize these processes. This can give you valuable insights on a range of things. For example, if there are too many pages users have to navigate to reach the checkout page. And this will also help you to understand user behavior. The business goals this would then correspond to would be branding. You can measure the success by measuring traffic, the organic reach, and the general reach. You can measure awareness through impressions and then again reach. And then you can measure sales and measure that through the conversion rate, for example. This list is not exhaustive, but it is a starting point. Remember, it all depends on the goals you have set for your business. Then we have our duration goals. These measure how many people stay on your site for a certain amount of time. And you can also show how many people stay on your site for less than a certain period of time. This will give you great insights to engagement. The longer people stay on the site, the more engaged they probably will be. You could also measure the response time of your customer service team depending on the purpose of the site. If you have a specific page where your customers ask questions, the less time they spend on it, the better in this case, as you'd want the response time to be short rather than have customers wait. And this shows again how these metrics are influenced by the goals. So, for measuring your business goals, for your branding, you could measure the engagement and session duration. For awareness, you could track the engagement. For sales, you can again measure the session duration. And then for retention, you can measure the engagement and customer segments. Next up, we have the pages or screens per session. This measures the amount of pages visitors typically visit in one session. Depending on the purpose of the website, you'd either want this number to be higher or lower. For example, if users are looking for help, you would not want them to click around for too long. The amount of pages per session should be low, as you want them to be able to find the answer they are looking for quite quickly. If you're running an e-commerce shop, however, you will want your users to browse properly go shopping. The business goals you could measure with this would be branding, as this could measure your engagement. Same with awareness. For your sales, your bounce rate would apply. And then for retention, again, we have engagement and customer segments. Last but not least, we have event goals. These let you track pretty much anything once event tracking is set up through Google Tag Manager. If you're having trouble with that, you might want to ask your developer to give you a hand with that. Some examples of what you could track with this goal would be external links, downloads, time spent watching videos, social media shares, use of widgets you might have on your website, when someone clicks to play on your video, and so on. So whatever your business goal might be, branding, awareness, sales, or retention, you would be able to set up event goals to help you keep track of those. Now, we have set up our own goals, but we don't always want to jump from one report to the next. So what do? Remember that Google Analytics lets you create your own custom dashboard. This way, you can pick the metrics you would like to display and keep track of and have an overview of your performance in one spot rather than having to jump from one section to the next. As usual, before we do anything else, we need to think of the purpose of our actions. So ask yourself the following questions. Number 1, what business questions do I want to answer with my data? Number 2, what business decisions do I need to make based on analyzing my data? Make a list of both and then choose 3 or 4 of the most important questions or decisions. And then for each of those, choose 2 or 3 metrics so you can keep track of and measure them. And if you do need a repeat of setting up your own personal dashboard, please have another look at previous lessons. And just a hint, especially when it comes to SEO, make sure to monitor your organic traffic and your organic conversions. While we definitely want to keep track of metrics, what will really help us understanding what actually drives traffic to our website. So we will need to analyze our search queries. This will give us more of an insight into what to optimize. Remember, keywords are a key factor. We already touched on this briefly in the last lesson where we looked at keywords with a low position. And if you want to keep track of your queries in your Google Search Console, this is exactly what you would keep track of. The queries you're appearing for, the pages that are appearing, and the CTR. So please use the Google Search Console to your advantage. It can give you a lot of insights. As you know, there is a lot of information that is available to us on Google Analytics, but one thing that could be improved is the display of organic queries. Unless you have linked your Google Search Console to your Google Analytics account, you won't be able to get proper data on your queries, unless you count the direct or organic clicks, but that's as far as it gets. Linking the two of them can be a little bit tricky, so one way of getting more information is taking your top pages and segmenting them by organic traffic and then monitoring the growth of your organic traffic. To make this a bit easier though, we also have a tool to help us. You might have heard about this before. It's called Keyword Hero. It gathers data from different sources such as Google Analytics and the Google Search Console, and it will then give you all the information on your organic search queries on Google Analytics within your property. This will make your life a whole lot easier as you don't have to click around between different sources. It's all in one. There is a 90-day free trial. I would definitely recommend that. And there is a free membership, but this only covers up to 2,000 sessions per month for your keyword analysis. After that, it offers plans between $9 and $125 depending on the number of sessions that are being analyzed. So I would definitely recommend giving this a try. To analyze the specific keywords or queries deeper, you would do something similar to what you would do when analyzing the keyword performance for your paid advertisements. We have covered this in detail already, so I won't go into this too much. But just to recap, as this is the last lesson of the module, the metrics you would want to have a look at would be your volume, the generated revenue, and the conversions. So, what's the purpose of all this tracking and analysis and all that stuff? Of course, to optimize our rankings. That's what SEO is all about. So, let's have a quick look again at what we can use to help us track and monitor our ranking. First of all, we have the Google Search Console. As you know, there we can figure out which ones of our keywords are underperforming. Of course, ideally, we would want to rank within the first 2 positions, as most users will prefer these and will not even scroll beyond that. However, remember that it does take a while to achieve such a high position, if ever, and once you are ranking in the top positions, there is no guarantee you will stay there. So we just need to be realistic. Either way, it never hurts to focus on improving your rankings, as even a slight increase can help you increase your traffic. So, how do we see our position? When you're in the Google Search Console, visit the Performance tab, select Position, sort your queries by low to high, and then analyze the relevant keywords that are below your average position. As we covered in the previous lesson, if the keyword shows results for too many pages, this is something we should work on. This is also where technical optimization comes in, which is what we're going to be looking at later today. If we do have too many pages appearing for the same query, we could set up redirects, for example. We could also include no index tags, but this is something to be careful with. And then we have conicalization, which is very advanced and definitely requires developer knowledge. Then we also want to make sure that the query and the result are related, and we should use common sense. If we find a keyword that doesn't seem to perform too well, but where you might be in competition with giants like, say, Google itself or Coca-Cola, then we can't expect to be within the top results. If we still get enough traffic through these queries, perfect. If not, then it might be a good idea to change what it is we are aiming to rank for. I just want to take you back to a favorite tool, Ahrefs, to show you another way of tracking your queries. Now, welcome back to Ahrefs. The first thing I want to have a look at is the Keywords Explorer. I know we've looked at it already, but we can also use it to help analyze our positions. So, first of all, we'd actually put in the keywords we want to rank for. So it doesn't give us the keywords, we'll have to manually put them in. Now, in this case, I'm just going to go with digital marketing course, just to keep it simple, but you'd add, of course, your own keywords that are accurate for your website. So then we'd choose the country we want to have a look at, and then we click on search. Now here, you get your overall overview for the keywords, but what is more interesting for us at the moment is the things you can find at the bottom. So here you can see a SERP overview for a digital marketing course, the keyword we just added. So here we can see what kind of search results actually pop up when you would, look for that keyword. You could see the Ahrefs rank, you could see the domain rating and the URL rating. You can see the amount of backlinks, domains, traffic, the keywords, the top keyword. Now, in this case, we only have digital marketing course, and you can see the volume. So this is something you can use to actually see what your competitors who are trying to rank for the same keyword, what kind of situation they're in. If you see, oh my God, they have so many backlinks, but their, authority is kind of similar to ours. That way you can find out, okay, maybe if I get some more backlinks, I might actually get a higher ranking. Same thing with the authority. You can see whether you actually want to compete with them, whether you have a chance of competing, or whether you're lacking in something. So if we get back to the example of backlinks, you can see, okay, they just have a couple more backlinks than I do. So I might want to work on that and make this my priority. So that way I can rank for this keyword. Or maybe if you see, oh my goodness, my competition is way out of league, you might try ranking for a different keyword in that case. Another tool for ranking purposes that we can use here is the rank tracker. So let's go there. Then we choose, the website we want to look at, our own one. So, and then you can see the average position, so your average position and how it develops over time. And then we can also see the keywords and the average position that we're holding over time. And it works a little bit like in the Google Search Console. You would look at the keywords, you can see how your performance is developing, and you can see, on this one, I'm actually on location 8. So if I look here in the United States for graphic design courses, we're on the 8th position. We have improved, but maybe this is something we can work on. So this will show you which keywords you will need to have a look at again. Maybe it's not mentioned enough on your website, or maybe your competition is too high. And then again, depending on your goals, you'll have a look at the position, the volume, the traffic. We also want to keep the keyword difficulty in mind, and so on and so on. And then we can also see which URLs are connected to these search queries. Now, if you click on one of those keywords, you will then be led back to the keyword explorer that we just saw. Then another thing we can look at here is our competitors. So if we just click on overview for now, we can see our competitors that you would actually, have added yourself. So you'd edit your competitors and you can then compare yourselves to your competitors. So you can see the average search position, the traffic they're getting, and so on. And then down here, again, you have your different keywords or queries. For example, for graphic design online courses in South Africa, we're actually on the first position compared to our competitors who are, on position 8, 17, and so on. And then we can then see, okay, we can either show the positions or the traffic or the SERP features. So this is just a really handy tool to compare yourself to the competition. What are they doing differently? What are they doing better? And then we can optimize based on that. And we can basically find out who is outranking us and why, so that we can make the necessary changes to be back on top. If Ahrefs is too expensive for you, and it really is not something that all businesses can afford, there's also Moz.com. It's a cheaper alternative. I think I've already recommended this to you in a previous lesson. I would encourage you to give it a try. You have the option of doing a 30-day free trial that includes a personalized walkthrough with an expert. After that, membership is $149 a month plus tax. Of course, it's not only the queries that determine how high our appearance in the search results is. Remember all of the other factors we have. Just to quickly recap on this, we have our content, so we want to make sure to post high quality content only. We have our backlinks, so the number and quality of other pages who are linking or referring to our website. Then we have the search intent. So this is basically what are users looking for. Are they looking for information? Are they looking to buy? Are they looking for, say, a recipe or other types of instructions? The best way to find out about that is to just put the query you're ranking for into Google and then see what types of results are popping up. Next up, we have the loading speed, mobile friendliness, domain authority, keyword optimization, all topics we have covered before. So please do refer back to previous lessons and modules if you need a refresher. Then we have the structure of the website. This refers to our sitemaps, and we'll be looking at that in more detail soon. Then we have the security of the website. Make sure your website has an SSL certificate. To quickly check if it's there, all you would need to do is check whether your URL starts with HTTP or HTTPS. We want that S. And then finally, we have the user experience. This is measured by the CTR, the bounce rate, and the dwell time. So how long users stay on the website after clicking on it in the search results before they go back to the search results. One thing we haven't mentioned yet is our most important factor when it comes to SEO. Do you remember? Of course, it's our content. And while this is another topic we have covered in detail, let's take a look at the actual KPIs we need to measure the performance of our content. First up, we have links. We know that links are one of the top ranking factors for Google. We want other sites to refer to us, and the amount of backlinks we receive is also an excellent way for us to measure the quality of our content. If our content is good, other sources will link to it. This is like a vote of confidence from their end. We must earn our links by, you guessed it, creating high quality content. How do we measure this? First of all, we have the Google Search Console. Then other tools to use could be SEMrush and its backlink audit tool, or Moz's Link Explorer, which we had a look at already. We want to make sure that we have a diverse link profile. And again, this is about creating content other sites will want to link to. Create something unique and useful, and then share it through your social media, emails, influencers, bloggers, etc. Get the word out. The next metric we would want to measure for our content is the organic search traffic. In the end, this metric could end up being more important than your impressions, because it's the users actually on the page which is going to make a difference in terms of conversions. Once they have managed to make it to your website, the ball is in your court. They're surrounded by your content. It's up to you then to create a good experience. And to measure this, we can use both analytics and the Google Search Console. Next up, we have our organic clicks, impressions, and the CTR. The traffic volumes will only give you so much information, and the comparison of clicks, impressions, and your CTR will then give you more context. For example, if you have a high number of impressions but a low click-through rate, that could be an indication that you might have chosen the right keywords, but your content is not what people are expecting to find on the page. The other way around, if you have a low number of impressions but a high CTR, then your content might be what users actually want, but your search terms need to be adjusted. Then we have our bounce rate, which is quite similar to what we have just talked about, but the bounce rate specifically captures the amount of users who visit a page and then immediately leave again. This is another metric you can use to measure whether the content on your website is appealing, whether it's what they expect it to be. And then, of course, this can also be used to identify whether there are issues with the layout. All of these metrics we're going through, we have to look at in your specific context. If the page you're looking at is meant to direct users to a different page, then a high bounce rate does not mean something negative. You'd expect it. Does that make sense? The next metric we want to measure is our conversion rate. This takes us back to the start of the lesson. Think about your business goals, what you want to achieve. What kind of conversions do you want to set? If you have your Google Analytics goals set up, this can help you in tracking your conversions. Just to recap, this could be a sale, but also a lead, a sign up to a newsletter, and so on. It depends on what you want to achieve. You can then measure these conversions on a tool like Google Analytics. If users are not converting, make sure that you insert your calls to action or find out what is keeping them from converting. Maybe the essential content that drives conversions is below the fold. Maybe some buttons are not working. It depends, again, on the context. As we've discovered throughout the course, mobile is becoming a more and more dominant device when it comes to traffic. So we do need to make sure that our contents perform well on both mobile devices and on desktop. Ideally, we would break this down even further into different device types, but for now, let's just keep that on the back burner. First of all, we have our mobile rankings. This you can analyze through your Google Search Console. You just need to filter your rankings by devices. This will help you in figuring out whether your content is actually appropriate for mobile devices. And then again, you can filter it by clicks, impressions, and CTR. Then the next step is to examine your mobile search traffic. You need to know what your personal main source of traffic is. If your main traffic is coming from mobile, you need to really drill down on optimizing your page and content for mobile. That should be a top priority. Then we have accelerated mobile pages, something we've only briefly touched on. Basically, it's a feature that Google added to its search results to make it possible for your contents to load much faster on mobile pages. In order to measure data here, you will need to use the AMP Analytics tag on your mobile pages. The amount of data you can collect is restricted, but it will still give you plenty to analyze. For example, one thing you will be able to see is the page height and width. This will show you how much content you can actually fit into your pages and give you an idea of how to structure the content on your page. To drive performance on your AMP pages, make sure that they don't include any errors. While we're on the more technical side of things, let's take a look at what we can track and improve here. First of all, we have the page speed. This is just a little bit different to the site speed, as the page speed focuses on individual pages on your website rather than the entire, site. We've already looked at Google's page speed tool you can use to check this. And if you discover the page speed is too slow, make sure to speak with your developer. Image sizes could be too big, there could be an issue with JavaScript, and more, but they will be able to look into it further. The faster the page, the better the user experience. Then we have crawl errors. Just take these into account when evaluating your content. We will go into them a bit more at the end of today's lesson. Of course, your content cannot perform if the site is not displaying properly. Then we have the index status. We need to monitor whether our page is being indexed properly. And ideally, as our page grows, we also want our site to be indexed properly along with that growth. If you see any anomalies when tracking the development of index pages, like sudden drops or spikes, then that is something to take a look at. This is so important as the indexing will determine what can actually show up in the search results. And then we have the dwell time, another indicator to see whether our content is performing well. This is not to be confused with the time on page, which measures how long a user stays on the page, but it's rather kind of a mixture of the time on page and the bounce rate. Now, the dwell time is not freely available. It describes how long users stay on a site after clicking on it from the search results before they go back to the search results. The longer the time, the better it is for your SEO. And this should also be an indicator that your content is performing well. And again, while you may not be able to view the dwell time as a metric, you can compare the bounce rate and the time on page to kind of get an idea. It's not 100% the same thing, but it's as close as we get. Then, to continue with our optimization for content, let's quickly recap all the things we need to optimize in the backend. First of all, make sure you have all your headings. Each page should have a clear and unique heading describing exactly what's going on to make it easier for search engines to figure out what the content of the page is about. Then we have our title tags. Make sure to include relevant keywords, and again, we want to avoid duplications. Each title tag should be unique. Then we have our meta descriptions, so the bit describing what the page is about. Again, we need to make sure to use relevant keywords, but stay away from keyword stuffing. Do try and make them compelling though, so that users get curious about the page. Then we have our anchor text. Remember, we want to try and stay away from generic hyperlinks like click here. Be descriptive, include keywords. Then we have the alt text, especially helpful for people who might have issues with their site. Provide descriptions of your images, be specific, and include relevant keywords here as well. And then last but not least, add subtitles to your videos or provide a transcript. These will help people who have hearing difficulties, help search engines in getting a better understanding of the content, and it would also make it easier for people in general to watch videos, as no one is always in a situation that allows them to listen to audio content. Coming to our last topic of the module, a topic that is brand new, the technical optimization. While it is quite advanced, and you might need the help of your developer for certain things, as a marketer, especially a digital marketer, you definitely need to know what options are available to improve your performance. Let's start off with structured data. According to Yoast, structured data is a way of describing your site to make it easier for search engines to understand. Basically, what it means is that structured data helps you display content in a way that search engines can understand better. And by this, I don't mean the content you physically see on the site, but the content in the back end, the code. The expressions that most search engines can understand can be found on schema.org. And with this format, the content is changed to a code that search engines can process easily. We will look at that in a second. Using these expressions directly impacts the way our website is shown in search results. More information can be shown, the results get richer. That's why we call them rich snippets. Here on the left, you can see an example of some rich snippets compared to a regular search result. In this case, it's a recipe-rich snippet. I looked up banana bread on Google. And do you see those star ratings, the reviews, the preparation time, even the calories? That is what makes it a rich snippet. It doesn't only give you your heading and the meta description like search result number 2, but you get so much more information. In order to have your website appear like this in the search results, structured data needs to be added to the site. In this case, like I mentioned, we are looking at recipes, but there are loads of other types of rich snippets. For example, articles, books, courses. If you would like a full list, have a look at the Google search gallery. I have also added a direct link to that in your summary notes. While rich snippets don't necessarily help you in improving your rankings, they are more visible as they stand out more, which will help you in improving your CTR. Now, let's actually talk about Schema. Schema.org is a dictionary of these terms or expressions used for rich snippets. It was created by the biggest search engines out there, Google, Yahoo, Bing, and Yandex, and you can find many examples of it on the site with some tips of common or useful patterns and how you can combine terms. The founders do agree that there is not one perfect way to display the data, but there are some common uses, and the terms on schema.org are considered global and widely accepted. They are constantly updated, and different types of markup are available. Markup refers to the way you write code. In a lot of cases, you would use JSON-LD. And if you did not understand that last part fully, that is absolutely fine. Speak to your developer and they will be able to help you when it comes to structuring your data. While I'm not going to teach you properly how to implement structured data, as it does require coding knowledge, there are 2 tools I'd like to show you to help you along the way. The first one is the Structured Data Markup Helper. Anyway, without further ado, let's just jump straight in. So this tool is called the Structured Data Markup Helper. And what it does here is it basically creates structured data for us so that we only have to copy and paste the code. Now we only have a couple of limited options. for both website and email. But for most cases, this is actually enough. So let's just go for article in this case. I've just looked up an article actually. So I'm just pasting the URL in here and we will click on start tagging. And now here you will actually see what the article looks like. So you have the full thing on here. And here you have your data items. So as you can see, we need to add the name of the article here. And what this website allows you to do, super simple. All you need to do is highlight it and then say, okay, this is the name. And as you can see, the name is required. So this is something that we absolutely have to put in there. Otherwise, this rich snippet / structured data won't work. So now we can add loads more things. So for example, the author we have here, Desiree Johnson. So I just highlight this, click on author. Then here we have the date published. All we need to do, highlight, click on date published. So then we can say image. We select it, click on image. And we can do loads more. We can add the article section, article body. So here we have, let's say this is the body. So we'd be adding that here. And so on. So we could add a rating, worst rating, the word count, and so on and so on. Anything you want to add to your rich snippet, we'd add here. And depending on what kind of rich snippet you're adding, you would have different requirements. This is what it looks like for an article, but it works the same for all of them. And then once we're done, we click on create HTML. And here we go. We have our structured data as a JSON LD markup. All we need to do now is we copy this and we would add it to the head section of that URL that we've just put in here. So we might not necessarily need the help of a programmer for this. So just a very, very easy way to work on your structured data. And as you can see, we have the type article here, we have the name, Desiree Johnson, we have the date published. So all the information we just added here, we have in here, structuring the data so that search engines will be able to understand it better and display it in a nicer way. Now, once we've done this, we want to implement our structured data. And then, of course, we want to test whether search engines are actually reading it properly. So for that, we have another tool, which is called the Rich Results Test Tool. And I'll be showing you this just now. So this is the Rich Results Test Tool, also provided by Google. And all we would need to do is we would need to enter the URL that we want to test. So let's say digitalmarketingtutorial.ie. So that is the website that we've just had a look at in the Google Search Console, our test website. Let's see whether our page actually supports rich results. So once you've added your URL, we would click on test URL. Then you get your results. In this case, the page is eligible for rich results. So you're fine. You don't have to worry about anything. Now here I see there's a warning. In this case, we're missing the field image. Remember, we have the option of adding images. So this just tells us, hey, there's no image here, but you can add one if you want to. This is not something that's required. So all you would need to do is have a look to see if there's any errors. If there is errors, you might need to consult your developer to fix whatever's gone wrong. And it will show you here. The next thing we will have to take a look at is improving and updating our sitemaps. We have touched on how to create them, but let's dive deeper into how we actually fix them. And if you need a reminder on how to create them, check out lesson 1 of this module. So let's get started on actually improving sitemaps. First of all, we want to make sure that our high quality pages are priorities. Of course, our aim is to achieve a high ranking, so we want to put our best foot, or well, site in this case, forward. And if all of our pages with lower quality are prioritized, Google will assume that people will not want to visit our page. So, what we need to do is prioritize pages that are optimized, have different types of media, offer unique content, and that encourage engagement. But this doesn't mean that you should add a priority column. There is no proof that this will actually make bots focus on these sites. So, don't worry too much about that. What it does mean, however, is that if you have to choose between pages to include in your sitemap, you should prioritize ones with high priority over ones with low priority. The next thing to work on is using meta robots tags rather than our robots.txt file. The tags generally would be more specific and apply to specific pages, whereas robots.txt applies to the entire site. When you don't want a page to be indexed rather than using robots.txt, use the tag noindexfollow. This way, you will still be able to preserve the link equity, you just won't show up in search results. However, if you notice that your crawl budget is being exhausted, in that case, you might want to use robots.txt. The next issue to think about is setting up dynamic sitemaps. Essentially, you or your developer would set up rules for when different tags and the page itself would be added or removed within your sitemap so that pages are included and therefore indexed, well, not indexed. Not something you necessarily need to take care of yourself, you just need to be aware of it. So basically, there is the possibility of setting up automatic sitemaps where pages will be added automatically. You just have to pick rules, basically conditions that need to be fulfilled in order for a new page to be added to a sitemap. The next step might also sound a bit complicated, but try to use sitemaps in combination with RSS or Atom feeds. Essentially, RSS feeds make it easier for search engines to find new content so that they can discover pages that should be indexed. No need for you to worry about the specifics. Speak to your developer. The next thing to look out for is your no index tags. Rather than wasting your crawl budget on them, remove them from your sitemap. You're giving mixed signals. By submitting the sitemap, you're basically saying, these are my important pages. But then the no index tag will say, please don't look at me. So please, in life and in digital marketing, we don't want to be sending mixed signals. You also want to make sure that your site does not get too big. Google and Bing both allow a file size of up to 50 MB with up to 50,000 URLs per sitemap. If you are an e-commerce business with potentially more sites, you will need to create several sitemaps. And then, last but not least, if you don't need to create a sitemap, well, just don't do it. If it's an internal website or if it just has one page, there is no point in you working on the sitemap. If you do, however, constantly create new content and want Google to index it, or there are a ton of pages, then of course, a sitemap is absolutely necessary. Let's jump into our last part of the day, fixing errors we encounter on the Google Search Console. The first error we can encounter is that pages are not crawled at all. And if a page is not crawled, it will not appear in the search results. There are 3 reasons that may cause this. Number 1, the page might be blocked by robots.txt. In order to check whether everything is working as it should, use the robots.txt tester, which you will find in your Search Console, to make sure there are no rules in the file preventing pages from being crawled. Reason number 2, a page might not be crawled, is because of the no index tag. Again, you're sending mixed messages, and to fix it, all you need to do is remove the tag. And then the page could also have a crawl issue. Here, Google will not give you any specifics. A number of things could be wrong with your page. For this instance, use the URL inspection tool to figure out what is wrong with the page, and you might need to speak with your developer. The next issue you could encounter is error 404. I think probably the most common error out there. This means that your page cannot be found by the bots, but again, there can be several reasons. First up, we have soft 404, which means you submitted the page for indexing, but now the server shows an empty or almost empty page. If you don't have any replacement for the content, set up a redirect or speak to your developer so that your server will respond with a hard error 404 or 410. Then the submitted URL might not be found at all, meaning that the page no longer exists. This could happen if you remove a page from your website, which is totally normal. It happens. To fix it, you can either set up a redirect if there is a suitable replacement, or you can ignore the error. Then we have server errors, which typically start with 5 and so on. In this case, the bots cannot actually access the site. There is loads of reasons for why this error might have occurred. The loading speed might be too slow, the server might be down, and more. So speak to your developer to make sure your site is performing as it should be. Another error that can occur is with redirects. If the number of redirects is too long, usually not more than 3 are recommended, there was a loop, the URL was too long, or there was a bad URL in the redirect chain. In order to fix this error, double check your redirects and reduce the number of chains as much as possible. Try and stick to one redirect link from one page to another rather than having long chains. Another issue you might encounter is new product issues detected for the site, and this specifically relates to rich snippets, which we just learned about. These errors show you that there is some piece of information which is missing. Remember when there was some required data earlier in the tools? That is basically what it means. In order to find out what exactly is wrong, I would recommend using the testing tool we had a look at earlier, and then again speaking with your developer, as you will need to know code in order to fix this issue. As you should definitely know by now, we need to make sure our pages are optimized for mobile. And in the Google Search Console, we can also encounter various mobile usability issues. Number one is that the clickable elements are too close together, meaning that users will have trouble with clicking on the right button or text or symbol or whatever. To fix it, all you need to do is adjust the spacing or sizes. The next error you could encounter is that the viewport is not set. I won't go into this as it is very advanced, but a viewport basically tells the browser the dimensions of what the site should look like. There's a tag you can add to that, but your developer should know more about the specifics. Then the next issue we could come across is that the content is wider than the screen, so users will have to scroll sideways to see content. I will not even begin to explain this as you will need to understand CSS, so again, talk to your developer. Then the last mobile usability error is that the text is too small to read, meaning the font size is too small to be visible on mobile devices. The viewport comes into play again here, so make sure that your font sizes adjust properly within the viewport. Try and stay away from defined pixel sizes, but use relative values instead. Finally, we have pages that, for a variety of reasons, might have been excluded from indexing. That won't be an issue for all of them, as in some cases we don't want pages to be indexed, but when we do want a page to be indexed and it isn't, that's a problem. One message you could see is crawled, currently not indexed. This means the bot saw the page, but it hasn't been indexed. For these URLs, make sure everything is in order, all the optimization we have covered so far, and then use the URL inspection tool to resubmit or wait for Google to crawl the page again. We could also come across a crawl anomaly, which means that the bot couldn't access the page. In this case, use some of the tools we looked at, such as the URL inspection tool, to figure out if anything is wrong with the page. Then the last error we will look at for the time being is discovered, currently not indexed, which means that the bot knows the site exists, but it cannot be crawled. Again, here we would look at optimizing the URL to make sure there is nothing stopping it from being crawled, like tags or the robots.txt file. There are a ton of other errors you could encounter, but for most of those, you would need the help of a professional developer. So if you do have concerns, don't hesitate to ask for help. You do not need to know it all. If you do, however, want to learn more about this tech stuff, as I like to call it, do check out our tech and coding course where you will be able to learn all of these things. PHP, JavaScript, HTML, all of these will help you in developing your IT skills. While this is not an exhaustive list of markup and programming languages you need, these do include the most important ones. Once again, congratulations on finishing Module 2. You can be really proud of yourself. Now, go rock your end of module assignment and get ready for more learning in Module 3. Welcome back to your professional diploma in digital marketing and SEO. We've officially reached the last lesson of the